Go ahead and light our chalice this morning. I found, or this evening, this morning, I don't know where I am. And I got a different chalice off of this people being in harmony together. I'm gonna go ahead and light our chalice with the words of Joanna Lubkin, who is a Unitarian Universalist minister. And Joanna says, "We light this chalice in honor of Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement. May its flame call us to search our souls, sifting through the past year to see where we may have missed the mark. May its light guide us toward the courageous and open-hearted apology, toward repair of relationships in our lives. May its heat warm our hearts to offer forgiveness to those who have wronged us, allowing us to release the chains of grudge and blame that have bound us to them. And may its strength help us take the actions that are within our power to make this next year more just, more loving, and more peaceful for our communities and for all of humanity." And let us say, Amen. And I'm going to start with a video of the music director of the UU congregation in San Mateo, California. And his name is Joel Chapman. And he did a beautiful rendition of the chanting of the Kol Nidre. And the Kol Nidre is it's the Aramaic declaration. It's done in the synagogue before the beginning of the evening service on Yom Kippur. So it is not necessarily a prayer, but it is often spoken and chanted as if it were. It's actually a pretty dry legal formula, and it's basically saying it annuls any personal or religious oaths or prohibitions made that one person is making to God for the next year. It's kind of like preemptively avoiding the sin of breaking your vows made to God for the year. But in fact, this part has become such a part of the Jewish tradition that often that whole service is called the Kol Nidre. So I found his version beautiful and haunting. So I'm going to share that with you. Sit back and enjoy our UU music director's version of this.
You're still muted, Christine.
Thank you very much. I never remember to mute myself when a video is playing and then to unmute myself. So I hope you enjoyed that. I just thought that was absolutely beautiful. I wanted to talk to you a lot of the Yom Kippur in Jewish tradition actually is very focused around the 4 chapters of the book of Jonah, and they are often read aloud on Yom Kippur. Jonah is a minor prophet in the Hebrew Bible, but he has a big message. So some of you may know the story of Jonah, but I'm going to recap it a little bit here. Jonah is sent by God to Nineveh to warn the people that if they do not change their ways, they will be destroyed. But Jonah doesn't want to go to Nineveh. The people there are not his people. They're not Jewish. And he knows that they won't listen to him. So who listens to prophets anyways? So he steals away onto a sailing ship. And of course, the God of the Hebrew scriptures knows where he is and troubles the water. When the crew finds out that God is after Jonah, they cast him overboard. He urges them to, actually. Jonah doesn't want them to suffer for all of the things that he's done wrong. So, of course, God wants his prophet to make it to Nineveh, so he provides a big fish to swallow Jonah up and keep him for 3 days and 3 nights. Just enough time to think about what is at stake here. It's kind of a long time out. Well, when the fish coughs him up, again God sends Jonah to Nineveh. This time, Jonah decides to go. There, he warns the people that they must change their ways or be destroyed. And lo and behold, they listen. So who would have thought it? They are not destroyed, and they live anew. But Jonah, the reluctant prophet, doesn't understand this turn of events. He would have had the Ninevites thwarted away for being so bad in the first place. He would have preferred God not give them a second chance. And he didn't recognize his own second chance. After all of that time in the big fish, he becomes angry and goes away to sulk on a hill. But God, who in the end is most gracious and patient and generous, and knowing the human heart as God does, makes room for all people, the Ninevites and Jonah, to make mistakes and change their ways. So on Yom Kippur, we are listeners or readers of the tale, and we can only hope that Jonah eventually understands something about this boundless forgiveness, this boundless love, and rejoins God's people. So it sets up the story of forgiveness and second chances and learning the power of forgiveness. So with that, I'm going to play a little music here. This is called Bashana Habana, and I'm sure I'm saying that incorrectly, but it basically means New Year. And it is by Melita and Isaac, who are Jewish folk singers. So I will try to mute myself and remember to unmute afterwards.
בשנה הבאה נשב על הרס ונצפור ציפורים נודדות, ילדים בחופשה ישחקו תופסת בין הבית לבין השדות. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. Soon the day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer shall we live in fear. And the children will smile without wondering whether on that day will dark clouds appear. Wait and see what a world this can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Oh, tire, kama tovi. ילדים בחופשה, בסבלנות תופסת בין הבית לבין השדות. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. Wait and see what the world is to be if we share, if we care, you and me. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. בשנה הבאה. בשנה הבאה.
So, all about the new year. So there is a famous poem called "To Praise the Mutilated World." It is a Jewish Polish poem, and it is all about its lines. I'm not going to read the whole poem, but it starts and ends with, "Try to praise the mutilated world." And it ends with, "Praise the mutilated world and the gray feathers a thrush lost, and the gentle light that strays and vanishes and returns." It's about the turning of the season into fall and the world that is less than perfect. And there is an awful lot about Yom Kippur that talks about us being fragile. Every human being is fragile. And I'm going to share some of the thoughts on that from my colleague, Kathleen Hepler. But thinking about us being fragile, it's some of us are less than fragile than others when considering our own station in life or our situation in life in some big or small ways. But we always know it can change for anyone in a minute, just around the corner on a day like any other day. And so we have the opportunity at Yom Kippur to grasp the awesome fragility of being human and that heart's desire to open in compassion as a result of fully realizing this. It is the holiday of atonement. And as I said, it's not a frivolous play on words to call it a time of at-one-ment. It's a time of turning. It's a season of changing, in other parts of the country, of changing colors. But it's also a religious response to turn towards that which knows a oneness in our life. It's the time for profound understanding of our common fragility. We all have that in common. Our life is temporary, and no one is exempt. But it's also a time to recognize that we are all inherently worthy, and we've got a great potential towards the good. And so often we can rely on the goodness within people to carry us. We rely on good intentions, on kind people, and in so many ways, people are more than good. They are heroic. And so sometimes we rely on that. And there are also times, though, that we can be severed from our own goodness, from the goodness that the Jewish people would see from God, that we may see as humanness or as the unity that unites all of us. So fear and war and poverty and misuse of power and profit and all of those things that are not aligned with fairness and humility. For those of us who watched the debates this week, it can be very easy to see how we are severed from our own goodness and from that kindness and fairness and certainly humility. So in the time of at-one-ment, in this time of turning, as we yearn to understand what oneness means in this mutilated world, with opportunity to say with great humility that we can all be severed from our own goodness, from our unity, from the God of our understanding. This world is asking for us to humbly see the whole world with eyes of compassion and creativity, and to walk a loving path through the world. It's not an easy path because we know how fragile we are and how precious our life is. But we know that there is something in all of us that wants more kindness, something that is calling to us. And we have the opportunity at this time of the year to put our faith in it, no matter what we call it. We can withdraw, but hopefully not for long, because we are all needed for the healing. Praise the mutilated world and the gray feathers a thrush lost, and the gentle light that strays and vanishes and returns. We must try to praise the mutilated world. So it might be as we try to be at one this time of atonement. So I'm going to leave you tonight with a lullaby. It's based on a book written by a Jewish author and a Jewish illustrator for a Jewish child called Layla Tav. And it doesn't really have to do with Yom Kippur, but it's a beautiful little lullaby. And Benji helped find all of this music for me. I said, Benji, what was on your cutting room floor from your service on Sunday? And he gave me some of these pieces of music. But I thought that you all might enjoy this lullaby called Good Night, Layla Tav. And I will, with that, wish you good night and good peace. And so much love. And let me pull that up.
Was up, the day was bright, it filled our room with a yellow light, it woke us both, so right away, we grabbed our things, we're on our way. We drove out to the ocean side, the sand was hot, the waves were wide, tall grasses swayed, the salty air was soft and still and everywhere, and the waves whispered, good night, Lila told. Good night, Lila told. Good night, Lila told. And the waves whispered, good night, Lila told. We found a place so great and green, the deepest field we'd ever seen. We gathered berries, sweet and red, the shadows circled overhead. The sky sang, good night, Lila told. Good night, Lila told. Good night, Lila told. plant some trees, we found some mice, we found some bees, and suddenly the rain came down, and plips and plops, it hit the ground. And the storm, shush, good night, Lila told. Good night, Lila told. Good night, Lila told. In the storm, shush, good night, Lila told. We climbed into the sandy car with all our treasures in a jar. We made a stop so we could see the rainbow just above the tree. And the road rumbled. Good night, Lila told. Good night, Lila told. Good night, Lila told. And the road rumbled. Good night, Lila told. When we got home, the sky was black, the cat was happy we'd come back. Now the day had come and gone, and we fell asleep with the lights still on. Good night, Lila told. Good night, Lila told. Good night, good night, good night, Lila told. Good night, Lila told. Good night, Lila told. Good night, good night, good night, Lila told.
Good night, everyone. Sleep well. Thank you for joining us. Blessed Yom Kippur, and may you be at one.
Thank you.
Thank you.